Welcome to the Sound of Listening. This is a spacious podcast where we center ourselves as we explore the interconnectedness of politics, math, spirituality, science, emotions, psychology. And we are rooted in spiritual centrism and political non-duality. This podcast features intentional conversations with people who are across the political spectrum and who are from diverse spiritual and philosophical backgrounds. We are listener supported, meaning that the only special interests here are the community's interests. Full episodes are available to paid subscribers, and you can join at $5 a month. If you cannot support financially right now, that's okay. Please share the podcast episode and tag me, and I will give you access. And after 7 days, the episode is released to the public for everyone to listen. So with that, let's get started. Thank you so much for listening in. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sound of Listening. Today, I have Yolanda with me. We met on Substack a few months ago, and we talked on Zoom, and her profile was really interesting to me because she writes about history in Hungary and in so many different ways. And I remember when I found the Substack, I was like, this is cool. And I really enjoyed it. So then I think we just ended up talking from there. She's a historical fiction writer. She's based in Hungary, and she has a book that she's working on that's going to hopefully come out next year, at the beginning of the year. So if you're interested in anything around historical fiction or around, we're going to talk about so many different things around politics, communism, and it's a YA novel also. So just, follow her. I'll have her everything linked in the Substack post. She has a Substack on here as well, so you can check out her work there. And yeah, we're gonna go all over the place today. So just be ready for that. And I'm really excited to talk about this because we also come from different political leanings, but we both believe that unity, compassion, and true listening is very important and helpful. So I'm excited to talk about this. And then Yolanda, did you want to add anything else?
Well, no, I totally agree with you. And it was so fun to meet her. And I'm touched that she was interested in what I was writing about history, which is actually, I want to reach people like her, like everybody, and especially younger generation. I'm older. And because so much time has passed by and, with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Iron Curtain, and I think it's becoming a time, where people don't even remember it, this generation. And I want people to remember that. And that's why I've written this novel, to try to in words that people could relate to and not be divisive, but yet see, some facts of what happened. So, that's my goal with my fiction. And so anyway, that, it will come out in January, hopefully. And please, follow me if you want to find out more about that, if you're interested. But so that's it.
Yeah, I found this quote earlier this week that said, the reason people try to erase history is so that they can repeat it. And that stopped me because I was like, that's why we need to understand our own ancestry, our own lineage, and the journey of the generations that came before us, so that we understand what has happened on this earth, because so much has happened. So I really love that one of the things you're doing is going back in time and writing about these things in a way that really matters for the present moment. And I find that really important. And I find that writing is one of the, for me, really crucial ways that I understand myself and the world. And I'm a writer too. I've also been working on a novel and stuff. So I'd love to even just talk actually about that a little bit if you want to, which is for how you've been working on the book and what research you did, or just even some of the practical day to day of like how to do it and what's been working for you?
Oh, wow. That's a great question because I think there's so many people that want to write a book or novel and they just never get to it or they never finish. And so for me, I've been working on this book for more than 5 years, to be honest. And it's not that I spent all this time writing. I did a lot of research on it first. And to be honest, it was like 3 years of research and I kept wanting to do more. I felt like I didn't know enough. And then someone said, you know what? You just need to start writing. And there's one writer actually that's helped me a lot, Shanta Grimes. She's a children's writer, Kids Lit. And I was following her. And actually, she had a big impact on this novel. Just that idea, actually, because I joined one of her groups that helped me, it was just a critique group, a weekly, getting together with like 5 other authors. That was a big thing to get me writing because otherwise I think to this day I'd still be doing research. I'm a perfectionist. And so I think one thing, especially if you haven't, like you didn't study writing in school, in college, whatever. And see, my background is science. I did a lot of writing, but writing a novel is huge. It's really a big thing. And so I did join this writing group, and I recommend that first thing, have some kind of group where you get people, fellow writers, and someone that's further ahead than you. And, weekly feedback, I think weekly feedback is great. But then another thing, find a structure. So I followed a structure, just basically finding, so it's actually like writing a screenplay sort of structure. It just following the 3 acts. There's a website that I can link to later. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's all dealing with screenplays because, like, especially nowadays, books go so much faster, as far as they're fast paced. And so thinking about like a screenwriter, the movie, how it looks can actually help you make it more exciting. And so anyway, I followed just that sequence, to have a beginning, to have the end, and then you want to have something, a surprise, a twist when you're writing, even if it's serious fiction, something has to happen to your character. So anyway, so following that kind of just the 3 act structure, specifically with the idea of, screenplay, it helped me. And then being committed to writing is every day, if you can, or several days of the week. And what that means is that maybe even setting the alarm that, okay, a reminder, I'm going to write. And the biggest thing was I used to write when I felt like it. Wow. I tell you, I wouldn't have finished my book now. I've written over 239 pages. That's what I'm editing. I'm on the third edit. And I wouldn't have gotten to that had I only written when I feel like it. So probably that's the most important thing. You write regardless of how you feel. Now, there might be times that you feel really down, and you can give yourself a break. I'm not, don't beat yourself, but you need to be more disciplined if you're going to finish a novel. Anyway, that's probably the biggest thing, is just that writing through your, feelings, even if when you don't feel like it, is a big thing.
Yeah. In Bird by Bird, which is also about writing, I don't know if you read it, but she said that just write whatever. Like, so one of the ways she started is she would get to the computer and just type what happened in her day or what's on her mind, just to get that flowing. And then she found that you kind of have to trick yourself, is what I've noticed. So then she found that she naturally ended up going towards the book and then finishing the book. But she first had to dump, like, the cat pooped on everything, to get that out, but to get in the place where you're typing. And what I also want to know, like, so the research piece, and this was a big piece for me for so long. I felt like when I researched, I was accomplishing things. And so to actually let go of researching was really difficult. Like, I don't know if you do any human design, but I've just been looking into human design a little bit more. And I'm a 5-1 projector. Okay. And I know some of these things, they don't make any sense, but I was looking at that category, and the subtype of it is heretic investigator. Okay. So that's my profile.
Yeah.
And I was like, that I can go down these rabbit holes and just be stuck in the research. So I'm really curious, like, as you're writing the novel and as you're discovering historical fiction, and then also as you're looking at the current history that we're living through, right? And through like the global political systemic situation, how were all of those intersecting? Because I feel like they probably were kind of, brewing in you and turning into something else. So was there anything that happened there for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't say that there was a particular event that happened recently that, because I had already started the novel, it might have been even more than 5 years before that I started the research and stuff. I mean, it's been a long time. Actually, I think I was 50. Okay, so 10 years ago. So there wasn't COVID. I had already gotten the research down then. And the one rule is like when you start writing, you don't really do research.
I think it cut out when after where you said when you start
Okay.
writing. Can
Okay.
you just start again?
Now,
Yeah, when
can
you
you hear
start
me?
writing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
When you start writing, actually writing, when you decide to write, because there's the research and then you decide to write, you should not mix with research. Okay. You should write. And so that kind of helps the flow. That okay. And what you, if there's something you have a question about, that you really do need information, you should put like a placeholder, because see, that's why it's taken me so long. I've learned this through advice, mentors, and I mean, I had wanted to finish the book when I was 50 and I didn't, and so COVID happened after I had started, and I mean, that would have been all the things that were happening after that, just crazy, the feelings and people suffer, all, and then, there were riots, whatever. So I mean, I don't know if that kind of answers, but I mean, of course, there's the immigrant crisis, that has happened as well. And my book is kind of touching on, because I also touch into the 1956 Hungarian Revolution, and where there were actual Hungarians that had to leave Hungary, and so they were immigrants, But I think the way it affected me was more that, I want to get this book out sooner rather than later. I think it was that idea. But as far as changing anything my story, my plot line, no, and I wasn't thinking, I need to get more research to support present views or things. I just got into that time period. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how I wrote. And yeah, so I really was in 1990, 1989, 1990. I was really there, and in 1956, those three eras or whatever. So yeah.
Oh, and those are the eras that you have in the book?
Yeah, those eras. Yeah. So 1989, it starts in 1989. And so the Berlin Wall comes down. And then 1990, what happened then, that people who had escaped Hungary in 1956 could come back and visit for the first time. They couldn't prior to that. And that's why, so my protagonist, he's 15 years old, and his family has been affected because of 1956, his grandfather was killed and his uncle had to escape. And so it kind of, so his uncle comes back and he meets him, and it's kind of like, okay, what happened to the family that stayed behind in 1956, and him, who he was able to go to the States and then come back. And it's kind of that intersection. And yeah. But it's just those, I have some flashbacks about 1956, what happened to them then. And then it's just 1989, 1990.
Wait, that's so interesting. So it's almost like a flip kind of. Well, not a flip exactly, but he started out there and then came to the US, and you have the other. So that's so interesting to hear about. And also I wanted to kind of say, or like kind of like explore, if you're open to it. It's really interesting because my grandfather, he was actually a communist, and
Okay.
he wrote a very large book that never got published. I started reading it, and this was years ago. I have it digitally, but I haven't gone back to it. I never met him, but I remember when I was reading it, I started crying because there was a part of me felt so connected to his writing, but also pages, just even touching pages. I was like, oh my God, he touched these pages. Like it was just really cool for me.
Yeah.
And he was in the government in India. Like he was pretty, prominent in like one of the cities there. And it was really interesting to see everything that was going on in India at the time. And so when you were talking, kind of what was coming to mind for me is that these things are ongoing, right? Like you talked about the
Yeah.
novel too and the evolution of it, but I think it's so similar to how we are evolving now
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
ongoing. It's not going to, there's no end, essentially.
Right. Right. Right.
It like keeps
There,
changing.
yeah, yeah, and things come back, you know. I like, no, I'm open to this. So anyway, your grandfather was from India then. This is what happened in India, right? Yeah. Well, I think because see, what happens is there's this whole issue of poverty and the equality that is very real. You know, there's people suffering, and I mean, there's suffering in the States, but so I spent a good part of my childhood in Latin America, in Peru and Chile. I speak Spanish. I mean, my mother's Puerto Rican, you know, but but of course I was privileged because my parents worked with the U.S. Embassy. But nevertheless, I did see poor people, and I mean I have a sensitive heart, and I do care about people suffering. I think it's wrong, and I don't want people to be taken advantage of. So there's this universal need, right? There's this whole idea, why does this happen, this inequality? And I can see why communism appeals, because it says, okay, let's let everyone have equal, distribution, and but the reality does not happen. That's the thing, the reality. And I know people talk about capitalism, but capitalism is different. I mean, communism is an ideology or ideology. I don't know, however you want to say it. Whereas capitalism is actually a system of economics, right? And I think what I believe in, I think we need a free market, but I mean, not to get into that so much, but I do understand the appeal. I do understand the appeal that who can't, that it's terrible to see people with, living in shacks on the street, whatever. I hate that. But I do know that communism doesn't solve it. It's the same, a few people get everything, even there. Yeah. So yeah,
I
go
love
on.
what you're saying because it took me a really long time to be at peace with what is on the planet right now. And I actually was reading Lao Tzu and kind of the Tao Te Ching, basically. And in that, he says, you think the world can be improved. It cannot be improved. It is already perfect. If you try to change it, you'll mess it up more. If you treat it like an object, you'll lose it. And this took me almost 4 years to metabolize. But
Mm.
what I've come to understand is that only what is the best can happen because each moment is already at its full potential. Like right now, you and I, we are, like,
Mhm.
according to me, we are at our full potential. This is
Mhm.
all that I can do right now. This is all that you can do right now.
Yeah.
And so when you can extrapolate that out, it's like, whoa, the disasters kind of are a feature of existence. And what you're
Mhm.
talking about with grappling with systems, I think that historically that's happened across countries, across
Yeah.
political ideologies. Like it's
Mhm.
consistently always been a few at the top and then everything else that's going on,
Yeah.
regardless of what ideology you're coming from, what race you are. It's that doesn't matter at all. Like according to me, from what I've read and understood of the world. And I think it is an important thing to really understand the timelessness of it. And I think history is one of the ways that we understand, like we were talking about before we recorded, that we have to understand our history so we don't repeat it, right? Like, and I think
Yeah.
understanding the timelessness is actually how I found peace because I was
Mhm.
able to say, oh, okay, this is
Mhm.
Earth. This is the world. And maybe one day it'll be different, but right now, this is what it is and I'm going to do what I can,
Yeah.
forgive the rest. but it took a while to get to
Yeah.
the release point. You know what I mean? Do
Yeah,
you have any
yeah, I
thoughts? I'd love
do.
to
I
hear.
do. I can. Yeah, I think there is a timelessness. I think absolutely there is a timelessness. The terrible things that happen, there's nothing new under the sun. There is definitely timelessness. And so and I find it very interesting what you said. And it's true. I think that's what's living in the present. It is and it kind of, yeah, I'm doing the best I can. And it's in this moment, and don't worry, don't bring the past to weigh on you, and nor the future, but to be here in this moment. I think I agree with that, and it's a hard thing to do sometimes. I don't know, but I'm enjoying this. Yeah, for sure.
I have a mentor. She's like a spiritual mentor. Her name's Trish, and on YouTube, she's a friend on the inside. But she said this quote the other day that I thought was so funny. She said, the past was awful. And the future, it's going to be terrible. And the present, you definitely don't want to be here. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like that sums up everything because it's like, where do we exist then, right? If we're constantly looking for what's wrong, where can
Yeah,
we
yeah,
exist in joy? And that's also something that we talked about before recording was like, how do we
yeah.
create a good life despite the disasters around us? And there's another Arundhati Roy quote where she says she wants to chase beauty into its lair and she wants to find
Hmm.
joy in the middle of despair. And it's
Hmm.
those contrasts, like how do we continue to have a good life while everything is going on, while we're contributing in whatever way that we can and we're doing what we can? Is it also okay to try to create goodness for ourselves? Like that's kind of where I'm like grappling with things these days. And that's why like you writing your novel in the midst
Yeah,
of everything, I think that's heroic. I really
yeah.
think it is.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you. I need to hear that. Thank you, because sometimes I think, oh, I'm not doing much. So it's good to hear. But I like what you're pointing out because, yeah, what is that joy, or how, to make it through the despair. And I know for me, and this is where I'll talk, with God, about God. I do believe in God, and that's where because I'm in the same place. I mean, the past, the future, the present, it's all kind of scary. And for me, what gives me peace, what helps me just to live in the moment is my belief in God. And I think, because you were talking about meditating, and I think actually me praying, I think that's similar to the meditating. And so in that, I see a connectiveness in that. But yeah, that's what gives me hope and peace, that there is a God. And I'm not talking about, okay, this little man in the sky, but this presence, magnificent presence, and that I don't understand fully, and that's okay. And yeah, so I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it actually does. Yeah, I started out meditating and I have been doing like a form of inner wisdom, almost prayer through questioning kind of process now, where, because for me, meditation was a state of mindlessness or thoughtlessness, even, right? Because we have so much
Uh-huh.
thoughtfulness, it's like imbalanced. So
Right.
I had to
Yeah.
start meditating to clear my mind and have some peace.
Yeah.
And now it's evolved into James Warrow. He's on the Ozark YouTube channel. This is a decades ago talk with Dolores Cannon, but I just watched it. And he has this inner wisdom process. And he says that he talks about historical figures through time, like Joan of Arc, who had that inner guidance of what to do. And he says that that's God. Like when you go inwards,
Yeah.
you ask questions with a very still mind, you wait for a few days, over a few days, you wait for the answer to come up and you're listening with a lot of stillness to hear, or not hear them literally, but like, you just feel it
Yeah.
rise up. So I've been practicing
Right.
something like that too, to reconnect with that part of myself. And I think that that inner part is actually, for me, it feels like my larger purpose. And then it ends up
Uh-huh.
connecting to, oh, there's something bigger than what we
Yeah.
can see or measure.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, I think they are very similar. My aunts are Muslim. They pray like multiple times a day, and I've watched them pray, and
Mhm.
it's very similar because some things are chanting related, some things are kind of like rocking, and it's very similar to meditation. I think it's about going
Yeah.
inwards and connecting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly. Exactly. And yeah, and looking for that peace and a stillness, but not emptying.
Yeah.
I don't empty my mind, but yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that description. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that exactly that's the difference, I think, between meditation and prayer that I found, or I guess self-inquiry prayer. Because some prayers are
Yeah.
very like you're deliberately stating things. And then
Yeah.
prayers are like, God, please help me with this. Like, what do I need to do? Right. That's also a form of like prayer. And then meditation,
Yeah.
for me, I've reached points of true being where there's no thinking and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
existing. It's so beautiful. And I only reached that. I mean, the few
Wow.
times it's happened, it's probably happened like 3 times over the last like 4 years. So it's very hard for me to get there. Some people get there really quick. I have a friend who she's just like it is in it, and there are things that get there quicker too, like sound healing can get you there faster too. Anyway, for me, when it's
I
happened,
see.
it's very liberating because every I like all perception slips away and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
existing. And so I think that's helped me kind of grapple with this reality a little bit more than reading the
Absolutely.
news and getting myself completely messed up, getting my body dysregulated, leading to a
Oh,
bunch of like physical
yeah.
issues and all of that stuff, because it's
Yes.
important to
Yes.
have our health. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I totally agree with that. The news, things, oh, it's terrible. And you lose perspective on your family, what's really here. Oh, I so hear you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a Christian meditator too. You said you're Christian, right? Her name's
Yeah,
Saint.
I am a Christian.
Yeah, she's Saint Teresa of Avila. You might have heard of her already. She wrote,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, she wrote The Interior Castle. So I've been reading her book too, because I'm like, who else is talking about this? Like, I don't care what religion you're coming from. Like, tell me
Yeah.
everything that I can find out. And her book is also really, really great about like about basically like a Christian way of meditating. And I've
Yeah.
just kind of put it all together for myself in whatever way works. And that's what I like about spirituality that I really didn't like about religion when I was growing up. I came from a very restrictive sort of view of God.
Mhm.
But now I've like kind of, DIY'd my own spiritual system
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
working for me right now. But anyway, thank you so much for sharing and like being open to talking about God, because even
Mhm.
that, I think these days, almost everything is polarizing. So I feel like even that's one of
I
the
know. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. No, I'm definitely willing, and it's good to hear what you're saying. And I think it's important to just thinking beyond ourselves, right? And so I mean that's what it is when you think about God, when you try to meditate, and you're trying, okay, what purpose, is there, and just get beyond the trivial things, right? And yeah. So
how did that start for you, like in your life, like that whole journey of going beyond into some other, not necessarily self-oriented in the traditional way, but like just looking for something that has a different purpose or a bigger purpose that you're connected to? How did that start?
Oh, that's a good question. Wow. Well, I must say that when I was 5 years old, or I don't know, my mom always read to me from the Bible. And the Old Testament, I mean, old and new, but I love the story about Moses and the burning bush, and that he was here. He was looking for sheep, had gone astray, and he comes upon this bush that's burning, and he doesn't, but it's not being consumed, just this light. And I think that at a young age, I've always been interested. I was like, wow, I'd like to be like that with most, seeing something supernatural, and just this idea that God spoke to him. And I'm not saying, it just kind of planted a thought, that, okay, there's something more. There's a purpose, there's a being for me, that I was thinking. And anyway, just kind of planted that thought. And I've always, like, I've never been into partying. But I've been into being with people. I love to be with people. But so I mean, I like to be happy with people, but when people start, drinking, and because it tends to be an excess, right? I've been to okay, there have been parties where people just have a glass of wine, and, it's okay. But I guess, like typical in college when I was in the States study, they would go, and I mean, how can you have an important conversation when people, they can't even stand up or whatever? So, but I've been in, I like to talk with people about deeper things. I've always been like that. But I think it started from that little Bible story, just thinking, wow, that's so cool. I want to see something like that. And I want to look at the deeper things in life, and not just, I, you know, the clothes, the latest clothes or whatever. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, that's kind of how I'm wired. And it's been since, childhood.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. There was this mystery, I forget who it was, but they were a mystery writer, and they said all stories are a mystery. Like at the bottom of it, every story is a mystery. And kind of what you're sharing about, the burning bush is like, what happened there? Like there's a mystery, and it's kind of beautiful. Like it really is kind of beautiful, I think, because that gives us a sense of wonder if we're open to it and our hearts are open to it. It can be a really wondrous, thing. And even like with the past, like with your novel, like it sounds like even though there are all these facts, like sometimes when I was listening to you talk about it, there is this, oh, there's a mystery. Okay, wait, why did that happen? Does that make sense? Like, is that like what guides
Yeah,
you
yeah,
through, or how? Yeah. And what's that process actually of
yes.
researching? Yeah.
Yeah, well, so you have to start like with a question. And to be honest, yeah. And so I wanted mystery, and I think the main question, and I've been thinking because I have children and to help me understand my children, right? And my sons in particular. So one of my sons, okay, the one son, he's quiet, and it's like I guess I wanted to explore the idea, okay, what makes him tick, right? And even though the book isn't, I mean, it takes place in 1989, it's not really about him, but this whole idea of, okay, what makes him tick? So let's throw him in, let's see what an older person, a relative, how can that affect a quiet boy, and what can come out of this relationship conflict or a better understanding for both. And so that was initially the kind of mystery. And and ultimately the mystery is, can the my protagonist, can he get out of years of being told that he couldn't do something, study further, can he get out of that? Can his uncle who went to America, can he kind of help change his views? And yeah, so I guess it's always like a question, start, something that for me, I wanted to understand a bit better. And then this work of fiction came out of it. So yeah.
That's beautiful because yeah, it's like the past kind of building to the possibility of the future, right? And I think it's so cool that you're working kind of through it that way and asking these questions, because I think it is really important to have those questions. And even for novel writing, they say that, right? Like, what are
Yeah.
your characters' like current beliefs, and then what are they going to believe by the end? And I'm like, oh my god, like, okay, I gotta go figure that out. And it's also a cool way for me to explore my own world, but also like the people around, and also whatever I'm reading, it helps make sense of those things, and it's another way of kind of processing through all of that. And anyway, that just sounds really cool to me, to like also have it be kind of global, right? Because I think so much of what's going on right now is our interconnectedness globally. So I think it's cool to also bring that into the book, but like in this historical way where there is the contrast, and the contrast really create the balance too. That's another way that like I've come to peace with like what's happening right now. I'm like, oh no, we do need the contrast.
Mhm.
And I think also just doing
Yeah.
it as like that growth can really come through, because for YA novels, from what I've read of them, like they really are about that growth way more than adult novels, which I don't
Yeah.
understand why. Like I wish. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Okay. Is there anything else that you
Mhm.
kind of share or let everybody know before we start wrapping up and I go into the final few questions?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think we covered everything so far, so we can go on and wrap up. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, where can people find you online?
So, I mean, so I have my Substack. It's Living History. Of course, I don't have it up in front of me right now, but yeah, I suppose, yeah. So anyway, it's Living History. I mean, Yolanda Nakari, you can look me up on Substack, actually just with the name Yolanda Nakari Substack, something like that. I also have I have two, I have another publication that's purely because I'm actually an English teacher. I teach English as a second language, and I have actually a Substack for them too. And yeah, so, but the main one is Living History, Yolanda Nakari. And that's it. I mean, I have a website, heartforenglish.com as well. So those three places.
Okay, awesome. And then, yeah, anyone listening to this, if you're interested in the YA novel, please go join her Substack. She's going to share more on there as it comes out, and you can purchase it and read it if you want. And then my next question is, what's a practical thing that you kind of do, or a ritual or practice that you have that you find valuable, that you would want to share with people, that they could implement, very easy to implement for them to make their lives better?
Well, I mean, I think it's really important. I call it a quiet time. And it doesn't, whatever your beliefs are, for me, I spend time first thing in the morning. I will deliberately, even if it's 5 minutes, I take 5 minutes, and depending on how chaotic my thoughts are, I stop, and I take time to just breathe and just allow. It's kind of a prayer. You can meditate if you want then, but really deliberately just, okay, this day I'm going to live it. And I give it to God, but I think anybody can, I'm going to live this day. Be calm, and then if you need, which helps me, I write something down. One thought, what I'm, anything. I'm scared to death, or I'm so happy I have this day, just something. And it's just, that's it. Just a way to, kind of focus and give your day, just give it out there, maybe to the universe, whatever. But it's controlling your thoughts, not letting your thoughts control you. And that's, I mean, it's not complicated, really. That's all. That's what I have to offer. I think everybody should try to make sure their day is focused that way. So take a quiet time. And that's what I suggest. I don't know if that's helpful, but I hope it is.
Yeah, no, it's so true. There's this person who, she does fitness, but she said, you're letting your thoughts control your mind. Your thoughts have just completely overtaken. I completely agree with you about thought work and really paying attention to our thoughts and how we're using them. Thank you for that. And yeah, the last question is, if the entire world was listening and you could share one message, what would that message be?
Well, okay, so because I do write about communism and I am against it, I would just really, guys, don't be fooled into listening to lies that it is the answer. Even though it sounds appealing, in the end, it really encourages total control. There isn't freedom. There isn't individual freedom with communism, no matter what good intentions certain people might have. And so just be aware and actually try to learn all you can about it. There's plenty, and don't listen to just one side. I do encourage listening to both sides, but overall, so that's my message.
No, that's beautiful. And I especially think what you said about like listening to all sides, I think that's so important, because each place is only getting one sort of version of truth. And so it's really important to seek out things that challenge our belief systems, and kind of, it's like that uncomfortable feeling of learning, when your mind is like expanding, like you have to almost chase that instead of chasing like the comfort of what you think right? And what you think you believe. So awesome. Was there anything else before we wrap up?
No, thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. And this has been a wonderful experience. And everybody follow Fee, but of course they are tuning in, but I will continue following you, and I'm really just impressed. This was a great experience for me.
Oh, great. Yeah. And I'm excited. Yeah. To read also, because I've been getting back into reading like fiction, because I've mostly been reading self-help and like philosophy and political stuff, but I just restarted like fiction stuff because I was like, I need to really like do that. And I'm like, oh, fiction is like fun. I was like, you don't have to do anything. It's just a journey. Like I'm on an adventure. But because like with self-help, I'm like, okay, how does this apply to me? Politics, I'm like, okay, wait, what do I need to do about philosophy? But fiction, or even poetry, I was doing poetry this month too, and I was like, oh, I can just relax and let the story take me wherever it's gonna go. And so it's really important to read different like types of things too, is what I've discovered. But awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was great. And I really appreciate you coming on. And then for everyone else who's listening, please check out Yolanda's links in the description. And if you have any questions, please share. And please let me know. And thank you so much for tuning in today. All right, one second. Let me